Hello,
Hello.
here we are coming live from Canada, London, Ontario, and I'm really excited to be here with my virtual friend and now in person, very good friend, Laurie Nevin. So we connected online a couple of years ago because of shared experiences, and it's amazing to be here in person with you.
It's amazing.
And we've been attending some workshops and symposiums together at the local psychiatric hospital here, which you thankfully organised with Dr. Bajadeth. So I'm very grateful for that. And it's become really evident that although we have shared experiences, the way that we've come to our kind of spirituality was through completely different paths. And we were talking earlier today even, and there's some really powerful experiences you've had in your story. So I'd really appreciate it if you were prepared to emerge proud today and talk a little bit about your experiences.
Well, thank you, Katie. I'm just so grateful that you're here in Canada and that I can go like that. It's been just absolutely amazing to connect with you for the last 2 years, and to have the honor of reading your manuscript just put me right over the moon. I was just floored with that opportunity. And you have an incredible book, Mend the Gap. Like I said, every new student in psychiatry needs to have that book. Truly, and that's really the reason I'm agreeing to do this. Is I endorse anything you do. I'm incredibly proud. I'm emerging proud for you, because it's really been incredible to watch you grow and you emerge and let all of your colors shine. Really, truly, I'm not kidding. And so that inspires me. And as your friend, I want to help you with this. I have shared my story about, I think it was actually before your book, before we connected. I came out of the closet in a sense and started sharing that I've had lived experience, and while working in a mental health program, which did feel rather risky. What are people going to think, and how will they view me now? And but I felt actually a bit of almost like an imposter by not sharing, because I felt that with the depth of experience that I've had, it could only be an advantage to others who are still really struggling. I thought I saw it more as an advantage. Certainly not, I didn't think it was for my own journey at the time. But looking back, I see that whole process was also another layer to the process of letting go of self-stigma. So as much as I was thinking it was helping others, it actually was another wonderful piece to my own healing journey, and being able to just be transparent.
Authentically you.
Oh yes, I was just dying to just be completely transparent, authentically me. I'm all about authenticity. I've had a business since 2008 called Life Navigator, and it's basically all about living your true self. So I thought it's time that I fully just do that, So I'm very happy that I did. I never really bought into my diagnosis anyways, or the diagnosis. I don't even call it mine, because.
Do you mind sharing what that was?
Sure. Oh yeah. I mean, that's part of the whole show, eh? Well, in 1988, I was diagnosed with bipolar 1, which has the tendency of going quite high beyond mania into more of a so-called psychosis. It's interesting how I thought it was just non-compliance, because I am a fairly defiant, strong-willed, determined individual. I know I am. I realize that I've displayed a tremendous amount of passion.
But there are reasons for that, right?
There are. I had to be myself a self-advocate, and I have gone through a lot of turbulence in my childhood that caused me to feel helpless without a voice. So that, I think, even helped the development saying, no way, I've got to have a voice here. I need to protect myself. But I think it wasn't just, I didn't believe I was really having a so-called mental breakdown as much as a spiritual crisis. And I seemed to know that at that age, even though I was 19, I was already very spiritually on a quest. I was definitely on a spiritual quest. I was already quite a bit of a seeker, looking for the truth, even like from age 10 or earlier. Existential questioning began because of the turbulence in my life. And I was an only child. So I really went through quite a process even prior. So to have medical jargon given me, and then of course the medication and the treatment that followed after that, I seriously just did not fully believe in it, like right from the get-go. And
so you have the strength of character to kind of seek elsewhere.
Oh heavens, yes.
Although as we've shared differently, to me, you still weren't able to avoid the system for that reason, right?
No.
And you shared a really powerful thing with me this morning about how you felt, how the treatment of you when you were diagnosed and you were kind of held within the system, how that made you feel, and kind of exacerbated the feelings of anger and worthlessness. Would you just kind of share a bit about the details of that?
I will. I would also, I do want to preface though that, because I'm in the healed state that I'm in, I have a very different perspective and view. And I know that there is no one for me to blame, because I really have been the author of my own life. And I believe that coming from a place of self-condemnation and hatred, I really did design some of these mistreatments, or just my path being so self-mutilating, because it came from this projector here that hated herself. And so I see that now,
which is an amazing place to be at after having experienced what you have.
That's what I mean. But the full true healing has not come through physical means. This is why my spiritual path has been so essential, because I believe wholeheartedly my whole beingness in a divine physician. So thank heavens I do, because that's why I believe that's why I'm here and where I'm at to this day, and would love to share it. I truly understand that we all have our very own journey, where our very specific curriculum. I've come a long way with even trying to keep the preacher in the pocket and realize that other people choose their paths accordingly. There's basically 7 billion paths. If there's 7 billion people supposedly on this planet. So I've really come to a lot of realizations. None of what I say now, in terms of what I've experienced, is to blame anyone, but perhaps to point out that the system could be better. There could be some improvements to the system. Had some of it changed, and I actually received some shamanic assistance, some true, direct spiritual assistance from somebody who understands spiritual crisis. I maybe could have reduced some of the trauma. But again, like I say, would I have? Because this again is my curriculum. It's part of my own process. Needless to say, I really did become quite traumatized by some of the treatment. Well, first of all, coming from a very controlling sort of environment as a child, this type of control was huge. I felt incredibly powerless and quite frightened, really. The first episode, right off the bat, I thought I was actually going to finally meet my bro, Jesus. Like I walked the roads with him, talked to him for a great portion of my life since I was a child. We have a relationship that isn't from a book. It's very real. And it never really matched. Even when I sat in church, I would always walk away going, geez, that doesn't feel like you, Jesus. I don't see you there. And so that began very young, before all of this lovely coming apart or breaking through, whatever language you want to use. So thankfully, I always had that. So I always knew I wasn't alone. I always had his support and other unseen guides, but he specifically was my go-to. And I did not expect to be put in a room of isolation and tied to a bed and then injected with an antipsychotic, which completely wiped me out. Actually, I ended up being allergic to this particular one. And thankfully, my mom has a nursing background. So she found me the next day, looking at the ceiling and biting my tongue, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop it because I was having a reaction. And so she immediately said, "Hey, you know, my daughter's having a reaction. Can you give her blah, blah, blah?" But I don't know what would have happened if she didn't show up. Would I have eaten, you know, it through? Who really knows? But that was my first experience. And I you know, it's something that you don't forget. Of course, I even remember, I felt actually thinking back, I feel badly for the security people that literally are the ones that have to, you know, get you to that bed, because the adrenaline's just going like you wouldn't believe. Like you really believe I thought I was actually going to be killed or hurt or, you know, because I went from euphoria, having beautiful conversations and communion with the unseen world, to now being like physically strapped to a bed.
And they wonder why people get angry.
Oh,
you know, when you're so petrified and being held down against your will.
Oh, I was rageful for sure, because again, I also had quite a buildup of rage, even as a child, being voiceless and helpless and not being able to, you know.
You described something earlier about when you were catatonic from the medication and kind of sensing you had this energetic scream that wanted to come out, but you weren't able to express that.
Nope.
And I'm just thinking about what you said about how the shamanism would have helped. Had that been introduced, a channel, a way of releasing this energy that you had repressed inside.
Oh, it was very bizarre. Again, antipsychotics were used in a varieties were used, and this, I don't even remember which one it was, but I just had such terrible experiences with these antipsychotics, because they were just not either having an allergy, or this one caused me to feel internal combustion. Like I couldn't express myself. I felt completely shut down on the outside, so no one knew I was suffering within, and I couldn't voice it. I couldn't really get it out. But somehow, I know my mom must have. I mean, our mothers are so very close; they can tell something's going on. Typically, I guess it's not always the case, but thankfully, she, you know, said when we had our next doctor's appointment, this is not my daughter, and she can't even voice herself. So off to the chief of psychiatry, they set that up, which is nice. And then he tweaked the medication, actually got me off of antipsychotics. So I didn't require staying on them, because it didn't surprise me. I basically felt I didn't need them. I'm having a spiritual crisis. I'm not having whatever it is you're talking about.
What's your reflection on that now? Do you think you needed some kind of medication to help bring you back to shared reality at that point? Do you think there was something in that you did need? Obviously it went too far, but I'm just wondering about your perspective now, in the place that you're in, one of responsibility. You know that we're all responsible for our paths. Kind of, what would you see as the ideal treatment for you at that time?
I definitely needed some grounding. There's no doubt about it. And, you know, being that I will always believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So even though I am first and foremost a spiritual being, my humanness was requiring some grounding, because I was amazing at ascending and popping out of this realm, but I wasn't so great at descending and staying here. And so something chemical became helpful, not an antipsychotic. I found that just, that I really did not have good times with that. But another combination, like, lithium, which is very common, is almost like an earth salt, seemed to bring me, just take the edge off of the need to, again, ascend, but it was more just keeping me here so that I could continue my spiritual quest. Because if I wasn't grounded and I wasn't in my body, I wouldn't have been able to really get deeply into the quest again, because I was constantly going out of this realm.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's so much talk about disassociation, particularly in people that have had childhood trauma. Disassociating from our body is something that we kind of get used to doing, like being in another realm because it's too painful to be in body. So kind of what you describe is really actually quite common. It's just probably a bit misunderstood about what that process actually is.
Well, I didn't have any therapy. I didn't require any. I did require, but I didn't receive talk therapy that dealt with the trauma. No one talked to me about the trauma I experienced.
That's the irony, isn't it? It's like we've become so dependent in this paradigm on the belief that there's something wrong with the brain. It's like a broken brain, chemical imbalance theory. And it amazes me how, my mom, for example, as well, has been through the system for 40 years. You were in the system, not once asked about whether you experienced trauma in childhood, and it just seems so incredulous, because it's obvious to me that trauma perpetuates an inability to psychologically cope with life. It just seems like that. Surely that's just common sense.
I'm not sure where I missed that. I don't know what happened, because I was just so busy trying to get myself out of the hospital.
And something we mentioned earlier.
That was my mandate. Get out of this place.
Yeah, sure. Something we mentioned earlier was the fear of the clinicians, like the fear it invokes in the clinicians. Like they're so frightened by some of these experiences that the desire is just to kind of push it down and push it away and medicate you so that actually it helps how they feel.
Oh heavens, yeah. I mean, that was a constant theme, is, to keep me in control. So once she's in a controlled state, by being on these chemicals, and, where I couldn't function the same. I'm still channeling, so that couldn't stop. The channeling was, and I do today, like it doesn't stop, we're basically all channels, and some of it that might freak some people out with that language, but quite in truth, energy in life is channeling through everything, like all the time. So that's more constant and normal than a lot of these other perceptions, for me anyways. But it was very much about, let's get her medicated, compliant. I constantly heard that word, compliant. Be compliant, medicated. You will be doing this for the rest of your life. I remember even having a conversation that I see this as a gift. So, and I did. I still do. I still see that all of everything that occurred was a gift, because it stretched my mind so much. It'll never go back to the way it was. But that's a good thing, in my opinion, because it actually did wake me up to. I still have awakenings, but it really did confirm a lot of the thoughts I already had before the break, that this isn't it. I already had questions about this world being real versus illusory, and I already had all that. So my experiences were really just confirming the inner or the intuition that I had,
So you were aware that it was a breakthrough even when you were in it.
I saw it as like, this is a big piece of my spiritual process. I always reverted to the spiritual process versus the DSM method, the more medical model, which I know frustrated the psychiatrist that worked with me quite a bit during the hospitalization process. I know it frustrated him. We did not see eye to eye, really.
Although, spiritual and religious problems are in the DSM. And this is the frustration and kind of why this campaign is so important. It's because that's not being acknowledged. and to normalize exactly what you said. Channeling is just part of our human nature. It's just that we've become so detached from that. But so it's interesting that you say when you're in the height of what would be called psychosis, it's like that was just confirmation to you that was real.
Because what was happening in the communication I was happening felt absolutely great. It didn't scare me until fear and anxiety showed up. So the ego mind definitely clicked in as a result of everyone else's fear coming at me. And it set me right into the clash of having, the spiritual awakening, which was feeling truly amazing. And I was really having some incredible insight, which I now have, but on a more grounded level and grounded way. But at that time, it became a radical because the ego mind clicked in, especially with all the reactions. And I wasn't set up to know what was really happening. That's what I mean. If somebody came in like a shaman or someone that understands the awakening process, there's a good chance I might have been able to avoid some of the more catastrophic processes, because I'm very fortunate to be here. My soul did say, no, not happening.
Not your time.
Not my time, even though I really thought it was. I'm very fortunate that the soul definitely has a purpose, and while my mind was making a whole ton of plans, so thankfully, through divine intervention, I am here. And I believe that the divine works through people as well. So that's why I will not blame the system. I will not blame people. I just would love to see more recognition of how healing it is for someone to express their spirituality. And at least have some sort of venue within the hospital would be lovely, where they can go and process that. So not just the chemical adjustment, which obviously won't ever leave the system, and then I get that, but bring this piece in, and you will have true recovery.
It's just about evolving the system, isn't it? We're not trying to kind of negate the system here. It's just about actually just needs a broader understanding of what's going on. Well, do you think if you'd have been given this alternative framework to understand, or had it acknowledged rather than the biomedical framework that you were given, that your problems wouldn't have been perpetuated? Because I know you had eight admissions. Do you think that would have been less if you'd have
more than likely
spirituality acknowledged?
More than likely, because I never felt heard. That was one of the biggest things. I never felt heard or really truly seen for what was happening. And it was a pretty lonely process. But I also, again, thankfully with the incredible love and support that I was fortunate to have, I finally realized I've got to take some ownership here.
Wow. And that takes a lot of strength.
Well, it was kind of like, I don't want to live this way for the rest of my life. I knew I didn't need to, that something could change. I had a tremendous amount of hope still. And again, because of the loving people in my life, I will always give them credit for that, along with my main, teacher, friend, bro, and thank God I feel that connection. It's a connection that you can't really describe in words, because it's not like he's saying, follow me, the typical, like, I'm better than you. Oh my gosh, I get so much messages, even like today, very strong, that I need to step into my own holiness, which is why I'm wearing the Phoenix is about rising. We're all spiritual beings, and he's equal. This is the thing, isn't it, where kind of religion, where we say it doesn't quite get it, because it's not about praying to a God that's external to us. We are just all divine energy, and that's all it is. Like, to me, it's energy. And so when somebody's in florid psychosis and they're saying, I am God or I am Jesus, it's because they're tapping into that very thing. I was definitely tapping into that. I saw the Christ in me. I did, but it freaked me out because I didn't know. I didn't have any it didn't have any reference. So, and then of course, with the ego mind not being fully healed, it came in sabotage like every chance. So I was constantly kiboshed from a full awakening because of the ego mind. So,
and that's a really important point as well, isn't it? And we've been talking to Dr. Vasudev as well, who's here in Canada, and acknowledging that there's a need for a really integrated approach. So absolutely acknowledgement of spirituality, but also we have psychological needs as well. You know, we are still body, mind and spirit. So it has to be an integrated approach to healing.
Well, a balance, really, you know. But again, I truly see my place in it. So, you know, because I took responsibility and ownership, I really, truly turned the ship around. But I had to have the willingness to care for this body, for this individual, which I now see as, you know, my character self, but my spirit self is really what's true and is always going to be happening. It is the infinite. It is the phoenix, the infinite being that just keeps rebirthing.
What do you think was the turning point for you? Was there anything in particular that helped with that turning the ship around?
Yes, actually, I will give. I want to give Marianne Williamson credit because after I had tried to execute an exit plan, let's just say, it was pretty brutal. Really, I'm amazed that it didn't succeed, but at the same time, it wasn't premeditated. So it was a very mystical experience. Very mystical experience.
That was a car accident?
Yeah, that was in 1994. And shortly after that, all of us, the book, A Return to Love, just sort of synchronistically arrived, of course. And I just gobbled that up like candy because it really kept igniting the light within me. Because I was going out pretty quick. I was really in such a tremendous state of helplessness, hopelessness, anger after that experience because I really, really didn't think I was to still be here. But again, this is why I've come to realize the soul made the decision, not this character self, you know. And so, so anyways, I read her book, and then it led me to A Course in Miracles, which has become a very big part of my life. It didn't so much then. I mean, it's a very intense mind training. It's not at all a religion, but it may appear to some people that it is because of the language, but it's actually very much about correcting the mind. So once I did the workbook in A Course in Miracles, I really, even though I didn't understand, sometimes I'd go, wow, I don't really know what I'm reading here. But there was an organic transformation that was occurring on a level us human beings wouldn't truly comprehend.
Like an energetic.
A shift. And I started experiencing it, like seeing it in the world that I see, because again, this is the projector, and the world I see is coming from this projector.
We create our reality, right?
Exactly. And that's when it all started to really go click. This is where the true healing is coming. But like I say, you know, without the grounding and the intervention, the medical intervention, I may not have been able to get to this place in my journey. So that's I don't want to.
That's and that's so important, isn't it? It's like that. Again, that kind of integrated approach. So physically, probably more physically, you need to kind of being brought back, but we can achieve that in other ways as well. In the grounding techniques, being in nature, making sure we sleep enough, eat properly, all really simple things. But but some of those things are actually prevented when we're admitted to hospital as well. So, you know, you're detached from nature. You can't have the freedom to go outside and put your feet on the earth, which is so important when you're needing to ground, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say it unfortunately it always looked like a prison. You know, it never really. I never really felt like, oh, I'm going to be healed. You know, I was always involuntary. Every admission was involuntary. So, I fought tooth and nail to stay out of there, which is sad because, I mean, there was some goodness that obviously came from being safe and contained. But the thought of going there would just send me into like, whoa. And one time I was delivered it tends to happen at night, and I was just alone. Everybody's sleeping, and my mind just went, oh my God, it happened again. You're trapped again. So it feels like entrapment. And I literally flew down the hall and tried to break through the glass door. It was, so there's something, if we could create an atmosphere.
So that's what I was going to ask you when I started to interrupt. I just what you're sharing is so important. I was just wondering what your vision of the perfect facility would look like.
Well, I totally, is there something like this in Brazil, or is that, like, I would like to see a combination where, you know, you still have the approach of properly adjusting chemicals to help keep someone grounded. So that can be part of the grounding process, but not a first solution, like just only if really required.
Like a sedative or something to help you sleep.
Right. Yes, exactly. Something that, you know, because there's emergency levels of states that do need to be like, boom, you know, we've got to help this person get
keep them safe.
Right. Yeah. But not stay that way.
Yes.
So, you know, something that, you know, that's the extreme measure. But then all of the things you just said with the grounding of, you know, having a beautiful setting so that people can go outside and enjoy nature, have someone to speak to, such as, you know, with spiritual care. I know that there is such a thing today. In fact, I did an internship with spiritual care, and there's like a chaplaincy program, but it's just not ramped up. It's like once a week, or there's a volunteer situation, which is lovely that it's happening, but it's not, it's still not, I like to see that, you know, increase and have a variety. So not just a religious background, but have a shaman, have a Native American healer, because
Reiki
again,
healers, energy healers.
all of that, because again, I said 7 billion paths. It's not, you know, I'm not poo-pooing religion, but religion isn't for everyone. So to literally have a buffet, you know, where would you like your spiritual nourishment to come from?
And rather than disempowering someone and telling them what they need, it's about enabling the inner healer, isn't it? Because that's what this is about. We all have an inner healer.
We heal thy physician right here. It begins here. The physician is here, because
and you are an embodiment of this, because to have gone through everything you've gone through, and to be in the gracious position that you're in now, and, you know, saying I don't want to you know, admonish the system. And
no, that's not.
It's really strong.
That's not my. That's not what I feel that this is about for me. It's more, how can we embellish? How can we enhance it? How can we bring to it even deeper healing that sustains people to carry on with their lives, and for it to be a chapter? Because for me, it's just merely a chapter. It does not define me whatsoever.
Chapter in your infinite lives.
Yes, right, exactly. Because this isn't it. This is not it. So, you know what I mean? Like, just to be able to move on and see it as, okay, that was part of my process, but it isn't who I am. And I now can live a very incredible, flourishing life and truly emerge and truly ascend into who I truly am, and not need to go around the cycle, the hamster wheel, or whatever you want to call it. And how can that not help all of us, really? Because I don't think about the funding part as much as I perhaps ought to, but that tends to be a typical bottom line. And guess what? If we take more of this approach, that bottom line looks better, you know? And people aren't repeating, people aren't relapsing. And they're fully.
It could financially save the system billions if we enable people to take responsibility for themselves.
We are in a time of major flux. This is, you know, I mean, I am someone who studies and is aware of energy, and so are you. Even if you aren't, I'd be surprised if you didn't agree that there's a shift in energy happening on all levels. I mean, it's just, there is a true shift happening, and things are getting messy on the so-called external world. And as things get messy on the so-called external world, it does tend to propel typically folks to go within. And when they go within, they can now find their truth, they can now heal, they can now find peace. Everything is awaiting within. However, the process of it being shaky on the outside and not having those tools or those awareness can cause a whole lot more spiritual crisis. And
this is going to grow, isn't it?
It's
and
we
were
grow.
Talking about, what's happened with the election and how that will, because we're seeing it from a different level maybe, and actually how this may be initiating this kind of blossoming for people, because it's going to send people into crisis. And
very
on a
catalytic
human level, that may look really horrendous and messy.
A lot of catalyst growth can occur. And that's why we say breakthrough, not breakdown. So it can appear messy. Nothing is ever as it seems anyways. we trust these physical eyes far too much. But when you do have awakenings and spiritual healings, you know that you look through from your true perspective, and then you can get a little more of a true taste of what's happening. So therefore, you don't see, say, the election as scary, because you realize this is all part of a global awakening. But again, really, it would be nice to have deeper awareness and systems in place. I don't even like that word, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like to have the healing centers in place and the awareness and the education. It'd be a softer ride. It's nice. Choppy ride is quite something. I know all about a choppy ride. Whoa, do I know about a choppy ride? But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, I guess.
And that's the aim with setting up the International Spiritual Emergence Network, that we can have more of this support for people when they do wake up, because more and more people are being forced to wake up. Before we finish, could I just ask you to share a little bit about your practice, your daily practice with people? How does your life look now? How do you self-manage without needing to be involved with the system anymore?
Well, I love my life, really. And I love who I am. I've really come to a place of deep acceptance and appreciation for this being that I am, and that has made a huge difference. I have taken a bit of a plunge by leaving a secure situation with having, say, a bi-weekly paycheck and right into self-employment full time, because as I said, Life Navigator started in 2008. But it was always kind of like a little hobby on the side, it felt. I didn't feel like I could really generate fully. And so I have completely leapt into being completely present for it. I see it as a vehicle in which people, again, it's just beginning at a full-time rate, where people can come and share exactly this, their spiritual quest, their questions, their wonderings, their existential, questioning. I give reflexology, which helps with the peace, which getting people into a more peaceful state.
Connected to body.
Yeah, connect to body.
It's a grounding.
It is a grounding, but it's also centering. More trying to achieve a centering.
Homeostasis.
Yes.
Physically.
Because anytime you have a question, it's not typically going to drop in and arrive when you're so incessantly busy and you have constantly got yourself overwhelmed with do, and everything in this world is serious and it means something. And so you've become a bit consumed. And so with the reflexology, I find it drops people into that place of, some
because we
space.
energetically hold things in our body, don't we?
Yes.
So is that kind of what you pick up? I don't know much about reflexology. But...
I do and I don't. The biggest purpose that I now use it for is called soul-to-soul integration. So it's again, really just instead of teaching you to meditate, because there's tons of places you can go to learn to meditate. There's yoga, there's art of living, like there's all kinds of places for that. I figure in the time span that I'm with people, I will also do meditation, but to get you even deeper through your souls, SOLES, it gets you into a place of, okay, I'm letting go. And then I switch and I put my hat on as more as a counselor or facilitator, I should say, because this process is about accessing your very own wisdom. And I'm really just an instrument, allowing, again, the divine to use me.
You're providing a safe space.
Yes.
You need it.
Yeah. And then, again, those truths that you're containing and that are waiting to be given to you are now coming at a peaceful state and a relaxed state, because truly we do not receive much when we're not relaxed.
And quieting the mind.
Yeah. So that's a big piece. I'm also able to marry people, and that delights me so.
Because you ooze love. You're just like an embodiment of love.
Oh God,
yes.
I do love it.
I'm going to share, but you are reverend.
Well, in order to be able to marry and do transitional ceremonies, I did that piece in order to marry.
It's just beautiful because you're a non-dominating
denomination. Yeah, considered it metaphysical.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
metaphysical. Reverence. Oh, yeah.
So that means there's just it's not about doctrine. And it does give me a chance to teach love, because that's really what it's all about.
True love, real love.
For all of us, yeah. We're all love. We're all extensions of this love. So weddings are a great way to.
So if you want to get married by a metaphysical reverence, I can recommend.
You would honor me so, because I really do get delighted with marrying people. Relationships are where our salvation is. We learn so much about ourselves. Self-discovery cannot happen alone nearly as well as when you're in a relationship. When you see your mirror. Yeah. So it's really quite beautiful to be part of people that have chosen to unite and journey together. Because to me, it does go beyond a relationship that is, a couple of lovers coming together and having this relationship. To me, again, it goes into a soul evolution. Relationships are very...
Oh, they push us into growth, all right, don't they?
Yeah.
Trigger.
Like I'm still here. I'm still on this journey.
Yeah.
And relationships are happening all the time. Relationships with your parents, your family, your spouse, like relationships are happening all the time. And it's beautiful, really. It's really just one big divine dance, don't you think?
Wow. Hey? Whoa, what an ending for that. We're all in divine dance. Yes. Thank you so much, Laurie. I think what you share is really powerful, and I'm sure your experiences will speak to a lot of people who are watching. So it's brave, it's like you said, like you shared, it's very brave to speak out about those things, but ultimately it's about self-acceptance, isn't it? And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I don't see it as brave anymore, because to me it's just being real. And I guess I figure by being real, then it's allowing everyone else to do the same. I always have loved hearing people speak from their truth and speak from a real place, not a prepared and conformist kind of way. I always love the authentic speaker. So and books that cause me to dive in and go to the rawness and the realness of life. I have always adored that. So why not literally let myself be that as well? And quite honestly, I'm being selfish with a capital S, because first and foremost, I need to be true right here.
And it's not selfish in the human sense at all, is it?
I don't think so anymore.
That's the key. It's like we have to like you describe the oxygen mask scenario, like we have to put our own on before we can be available to help anyone else.
That's it. And really, I wouldn't be truthful to you if I'm not truthful to me first. Exactly. So it really does begin here. Like I said, I put myself through the the ringer a number of times to get to this place. But I'll tell you, if it wasn't for the spiritual assistance that I've been receiving and that I so know is available, I'm just so thankful that I have that. And I would love for everybody to find what gives them their core strength, what speaks their truth, and hang on and just go for it. Go for it. Just go for it, because we're all magnificent beings, playing characters and forgetting that we're playing characters. So we buy more into the character self than we do the true self, right? That's really it's like you just had a little bit of amnesia, really. You just
it's like remembering who we are, isn't it? Coming home.
That's it right there. Remembering who we are is indeed coming home, and home is now. It's not some time off in the future, and for me, neither is heaven. It's all now.
Thank you, Laurie, so much. I'm so grateful that we've connected, and I'm really proud of you too, and just your strength is amazing, and I think you're brave even if you don't, so I'm sure you'll have given some inspiration to people watching. And
well, I hope it intrigues people to do the same. Do the same. Share. Develop inner strength by sharing and not being quiet.
This is about normalizing those experiences and helping people to find that strength and empowering. So thank you. It's so wonderful to do this in person.
It sure is. It sure is. Thank you so much, Katie.